John Robert Lewis, through February 21st through 1940 to July 7th, 2020. John Lewis was an American politician and civil rights activist who served in the U.S. House of Representatives for Georgia's 5th Congressional District from 1987 until his death in 2020. Lewis was born in Troy, Alabama, the third of 10 children. His parents were sharecroppers in rural Pike County, Alabama. Troy was the county seat. As a boy, Lewis wanted to be a preacher. At the age of 5, he preached to his family chickens on the farm. As a young child, Lewis had very little interaction with white people. Pike County was majority black. His family worked the farm, and at age 6, he had only seen 2 white people. The Lewis family had very few books in their house, as their financial situation was very poor. Lewis's early education was at the Rosenwald School, the only school in the area. He had a wonderful teacher in elementary school, and she told him to read, my child, read. He tried to read everything. At age 16, he went to the public library and tried to get a library card. He was told that the library was for whites only, not for colored people. In 1955, Lewis first heard Martin Luther King Jr. on the radio. He closely followed King's Montgomery boycott later that year. At age 15, Lewis preached his first public sermon. When he was 17, Lewis met Rosa Parks, noted for her role in the bus boycott in Montgomery. He met Martin Luther King Jr. at age 17. In later years, Lewis met the evangelist Billy Graham, a friend of Martin Luther King Jr. Billy Graham helped change him and inspired him to fulfill his aspirations of being a minister. Lewis graduated from the American Baptist Theological Seminary in Nashville, Tennessee, and was ordained as a minister. As a college student, Lewis became an activist in the civil rights movement. He organized sit-ins at segregated lunch counters in Nashville and worked at desegregating the counters in the downtown of the city. Lewis was arrested and jailed many times during nonviolent activities to desegregate downtown businesses. Lewis was very instrumental in organizing bus boycotts and other nonviolent protests to support voting rights and racial equality. Lewis claimed it was important to engage in good trouble, necessary trouble, to achieve change, and he held to this credo throughout his life. In 1961, Lewis became one of the 13 original Freedom Riders. A group of 7 blacks and 6 whites planned to ride interstate buses from Washington, D.C. to New Orleans to challenge the policies of southern states along the route that imposed segregated seating on buses, violating federal policy for interstate transportation. The Freedom Riders encountered violence by an unrestrained mob, including KKK members, who were told their arrival by police. They were beaten with baseball bats, pipes, and chains, and stones. The police arrested them and took them across the border into Tennessee. The Freedom Riders then reorganized and rode to Montgomery, Alabama, where they were met with more violence. There, Lewis was hit in the head with a wooden crate. He was left lying on the ground at the Greyhound bus station in Montgomery. He thought he was going to die. He was the chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee from 1963 to 66. He was one of the Big 6 leaders of the groups that organized the 1963 March on Washington. Lewis played many key roles within the civil rights movement and his actions to end legalized segregation in the United States. In 1965, Lewis led the first Selma to Montgomery march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and an incident which is now known as Bloody Sunday. State troopers and local police attacked the marchers, including Lewis. In 1986, Lewis decided to run for the U.S. House of Representatives. Lewis defeated his opponent by a 75 to 25% margin in Georgia's 5th Congressional District. He was re-elected 17 times. He served 18 terms in the U.S. House of Representatives. The district he represented included most of Atlanta. Due to his length of service, he became the dean of the Georgia Congressional Delegation. Lewis was one of the leaders of the Democratic Party. He became the chief deputy whip in 1991, and he was elected as senior deputy whip in 2003. Lewis received many honorary degrees and awards, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2011. Those who knew John Lewis, from U.S. senators to 20-plus congressional aides, called him the conscience of Congress. He was a voting rights icon. John Lewis was a great man who dedicated his life to racial equality and voters' rights.